Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. Big developments for Mercedes with their ambitious plan to expand their Brackley workforce from 1,400 to 1,900 has now been approved. Far more resources for them over the coming years, but we should not be expecting any more resources for Haas. Gene Haas goes into detail on exactly why Guenther Steiner got the axe, and it might not be what you might expect. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. We're going to dive into it then if you guys didn't somehow see yesterday's massive revelation. Steiner is gone. What was effectively his Formula 1 team in many respects, sure, didn't carry his name, but he made it happen. Was he a good team principal? Arguably not. Many people understandably frustrated with the way that he dealt with the Mick Schumacher situation, but I think understandably from Will Buxton's POV, this isn't necessarily Steiner's failure, as he goes on to say, who other than Steiner could have endured so long treading water with his hands tied behind his back. The Haas philosophy, i.e. spend as little as possible, effectively use the cars as advertising boards that go around the track. For Haas Automation, the machine tools manufacturer, with very little investment, copying everything you possibly can from Ferrari, buying it all from Ferrari, and that's how they've been operated since they came into the sport. That does not necessarily work nowadays. The sport has changed. Ownership decisions meant the team could not. Steiner's perceived failure, to my mind, a result of the situation rather than the cause. So whatever you think of Steiner, there is no doubt that he was dealt a difficult hand dealing with the team from Gene Haas, the actual owner himself. Now, Gene Haas, understandably, comes out with some explanations on this, but we know full well this was not an amicable split between the two of them. Even this was talked about today, that Steiner was informed and found out about this change towards the end of December. Obviously a surprise, maybe understandably, that he was not getting his contract renewed, and then to such a degree that according to sources inside the Haas factory, Steiner was not even allowed to say goodbye to the team, which is, given it was basically his team, pretty outrageous, you gotta think, right? Steiner has not made any comments on this publicly yet. I imagine they might be coming in the near future, whether there's NDAs or whatever in place, I don't know. But of course, Gene Haas himself, he's given his point of view. I'm sure that Guenther might give his point of view in the relatively near future as well, especially when Gene Haas is coming out with all sorts of stuff lately. But I don't understand whether he's delusional or whether he's just saying this because it sounds good for the media. Intrigued to your perspective on this in a second in the comments below. But yesterday the rumour was Steiner had gone to Gene and said, look, Gene, we need more money. You know, this isn't going to work without more investment. We need to up the resources, X, Y, Z. Otherwise, we're going to keep languishing in the back of the grid, basically. Steiner wanted more investment. Gene Haas said, no, Guenther, do a better job with what you've got. And effectively, this is, many people's perspective, business as usual. Let's keep on doing what we're currently doing. The value of the company's gone up over the last few years because Formula 1 has grown. It's, great. Its advertising is automation, machine tools company. Great. Is it the best for the sport? I don't think so. I think maybe this team would be better in the hands of somebody else, but seems like Gene Haas's point of view was no, business as usual. Let's keep on doing what we are currently doing. And if that's his point of view, fair enough, but that's not what he's saying publicly, because what he says publicly is that he's embarrassed by the poor performance of the team and I have no interest in being in 10th place anymore. This is the full statement. We're in our 8th year, over 160 races. We've never had a podium. The last couple of years we've been 10th or 9th. I'm not sitting here saying it's Guenther's fault or anything like that, even though he kind of is, but it just seems like this was an appropriate time to make a change and try a different direction, because it doesn't seem like continuing with what we had is really going to work. Absolutely correct, as far as I'm concerned. I like Guenther, he's a nice person, a really good personality. We had a tough end to the year. I don't understand that. I really don't. Those are good questions to ask Guenther. What went wrong? At the end of the day, it's about performance. I have no interest in being 10th anymore. So, okay, that might sound good on paper. So what are we going to do about it, Mr. Gene Haas? And, well, his solution might not be what you could potentially expect, especially when he says the following: I want to take advantage of the good equipment that a lot of other teams do not have. So, hang on a second, what are you talking about, mate? What good equipment exactly do Haas have that other teams don't exactly have? And this was the statement that sealed the deal for me. There's no reason why we are 10th. I can't understand how, with all the equipment and people that we have. So, okay, this isn't the Sunday League, right? The other teams teams you're competing with are serious teams. They're spending millions, if not billions of dollars to, win this championship or do as well as they possibly can in this championship. This isn't some farmer league where you can get by just doing what you're doing. You're 10th because you're the worst team. The 9 other teams have millions, billions of dollars going into them. I mean, just look at Haas's immediate competitors. Williams, big investment from Doralton. They seem to be making progress. Even Alfa Romeo Sauber, they were bad last year as well. But Audi are coming in, giving them big investments over the next couple of years. We know what Alfa Tauri are looking like, right? Close going up with Red Bull, all this type of stuff. Aston Martin, a couple of years ago, 2022, they couldn't get out of Q1 at the start of the season. Both cars were out of Q1 like every single time. And Haas's car was better than that. And look, in the grand scheme of things, Haas actually don't have a terrible car. I mean, it's bad, but compared to what backmarkers used to be like, 20, 30 years ago, 6 seconds off the pace, the Haas is kind of competitive, but it's just every other team is more competitive, more serious, and they actually invest in trying to make a decent product here. It's like, why is he saying, I don't understand why we're 10th? You're worse than all the other teams. You put less money in than all the other teams. Why is this a surprise? And just to continue my point on Aston Martin, they're putting big money into the Silverstone factory. They're taking it serious. Lawrence Stroll, he's pumping the money in from all the investors and stuff. And also, the equipment they have, it's the worst equipment on the grid. I don't think there's any question about this. Kevin Magnussen actually said last year that the problem is money about Haas's poor pit stops. Our pit stop equipment, our guns, our jacks, our lights, everything are from 2016. It's 2022 now. At the time now it's 2023. They are just old. So this is the reason why Haas's pit stops, in large part, are averaging 4.2 seconds or something. We don't even ever see the Haas pit stops because their car's so bad in race trim. It kills its tyres. We know how it is. But their pit stops are terrible because they don't have the equipment to actually improve them because they won't invest in them. So I just don't understand where Gene Haas is getting this idea from that, I just don't know why we're 10th. I simply can't explain. It must be Guenther's fault, So hang on a second. Guenther's saying, look, all our nearest competitors, if Gene really wants to be 6th or 5th or something in that kind of midfield ballpark, all of the other competitors are putting serious cash in. And Haas is not. Gene Haas does not seem willing to. So there's only 2 explanations here. Either he's literally delusional and for some reason can't figure out why the team is 10th and is blaming Guenther, or publicly he's saying, oh yeah, I really want to be competitive, or I'm really fed up being 10th place, really want to, we want to push for a podium, guys, like this type of stuff. Whereas the reality is he kind of just likes the status quo as it is. He doesn't really mind being 10th. This is my read on it. He doesn't really care about being 10th because he sees it as an asset which is growing in value and one that is bringing good advertising into the other part of his business. So from his POV, I imagine it's kind of business as usual is no problem at all. Steiner didn't see it like that. He wanted to progress. Maybe Gene Haas didn't. Therefore, Komatsu, the new team principal, is a guy that will maybe tell Gene Haas what he wants to hear. I don't know, but it's crazy how much turnover there has been at these teams over the last several years. Only Horner and Wolff have been at their respective teams for more than 2 years. Mike Crack is now the 3rd longest serving team principal. Stella, Vals, Vasseur, of course, Alessandro Bravi, Faman, Mekis, and then, of course, Komatsu coming in very recently. So this is the current situation. And sure, Steiner might not have been great at what he did, but he was dealt a very difficult hand at Haas. So I just can't see Haas going anywhere, right? If Gene Haas's perspective is that, I just don't know why we're 10th and all these other teams, we're better than them in some respects, despite the fact that all these teams are putting way more money and resources and investment in than Haas are, and then they've got poor Andretti on the sidelines, quite willing to do exactly the same thing, but yet Gene Haas won't sell the team. So it's frustrating, I think, for many parties, not least, I'm sure, Guenther Steiner himself, because he's now ousted. What does his next role look like in Formula One? I'm sure Netflix might come up with some sort of road trip where you get Guenther, you get, I don't know, Mattia Binotto in a car and you just have him drive around. I'm sure it would be good content, but I can't exactly imagine that Haas are going to turn a massive corner based on what Gene Haas has been saying over the last couple of days. Couple of things on Red Bull as well. The RB20 is reportedly going to be unveiled on the 8th of February. So I think the first car reveals on like the 4th or the 5th. So not really that long from now, to be honest. Then the Mercedes, I think, is on the 14th, although I'm not sure that's been confirmed yet. 13th, 14th, there are a few. I think Ferrari's the 13th this year. Now, it's not really going to be the RB20, is it? We know what Red Bull do. They dress up last year's car with a new livery, and the new livery is basically the same, but they stand there next to the RB19 and they say, oh, here's the RB20, doesn't it look great with the livery that's the same as last year, although they're going to hype it up. So, look, who knows? Maybe this year they actually will show us the RB20 because apparently they're really confident in it, right? Let's not forget that it was only recently where one of their top guys said that their focus has been turning to to the RB21, the 2025 car already. So basically saying that they believe the RB20 is really as good as it's going to be. Like, we've basically nailed everything, but there's a few tweaks we want to make for 2025, which is pretty concerning. But maybe if Red Bull are that confident, then they might actually show us the real car in February, which is not what they usually do. They usually show the older one or some sort of, mock-up version with the same old livery. But maybe this year will be different from the Red Bull side. Couple of big stories though on Mercedes. Firstly, there's going to be some tyre testing as usually happens in February on the Inters and the wets for this year. I wonder if the wets will actually be useful this year at all. We know full well that they've been a problem for a good few years now in the sport. The wet tyres don't really work as intended because when the wet tyre is the fastest tyre, there's too much spray to race. So the wet tyre never gets used because in conditions where that is the go-to tyre, it's simply not possible to race anymore. The Inters is best in like every condition where racing in the rain is actually plausible. So literally the Grand Prix will start behind the safety car on the wet tyres and everyone will pile into the pits lap one if they can for Inters. Which is pretty much what happened at Suzuka 2022, right? When everyone came into the pits, apart from like Mick Schumacher or something, they left him out there and he was just a sitting duck on those older wet tyres. Didn't really go to plan. Maybe this year's wet tyres are going to be better. We know that Pirelli have talked about it for some time, improving the wet tyres. We've also seen Formula One themselves try out these like spray guards on the back of the wheels that the team can like clip on in wet conditions to reduce the spray. But they tested those a few months ago at Silverstone and it failed miserably. So I don't know if we're any closer to getting that sorted, but a better wet tyre would be a good start. And well, Mercedes are going to test them in the start of February. This though is the other big one. So Mercedes have been looking for, and this is funny really talking about this in the same video we're discussing Haas's lack of investment, because Mercedes are looking to put more money in, they're looking to put more resources in, they're looking to go bigger and better to get back to where they want to be at the top of the sport. So they've been looking for some approval, somewhat controversial, you know how it is if you're in the UK, getting like planning permission and stuff like this, but to expand their headquarters in Brackley. They want to increase their workforce from 1,400 people all the way to 1,900 people over the next few years. So this is the BBC News article today that says, West Northamptonshire Council approved the Brackley race site's expansion at a meeting on Wednesday. So, they want to do significant economic developments. This is basically what they say about some of the issues. The amount of cars on the road estimated is like classic UK local council type stuff, isn't it? Council officers estimated that cars turning into St James Road would increase from 57 to 528. Somehow they've calculated that. I don't know. But really the story here from our perspective is Mercedes increasing the workforce at their, Brackley facility, which is for the Formula One team, from 1,400 to 1,900 people, which is a pretty big deal. Now, I think the interesting part of this for me is that the cost cap is not going anywhere, right? The cost cap is going to stay the same. I mean, they brought it in at like 145 mil, then it was 140, now it's like 135. And sure, there'll be inflation-adjusted changes to that over the coming years, but the cost cap is here to stay. But yet Mercedes are planning to employ 500 more people. We don't know where these people are going to be, but they're going to expand the facility, so more people are going to work there. Engine, aero, operations, I don't know, but it's going to be a significant expansion to the team, clearly. But yet there is still a limit on what they can pay. Now, salaries are included in the cost cap. Only the top 3 to 5 salaried individuals are excluded. This was the talking point with was it Helmut Marko or Adrian Newey, basically these individuals that are, I think it was maybe Adrian Newey especially, that are like CTO for Red Bull, but yet they don't technically work for Red Bull, they work for their own company, and therefore do they fall under the cost cap? Do they not? This type of stuff that, accountants try their best to try and lawyers really try their best to try and fumble away around. But still, excluding, the drivers and like Toto Wolff and stuff like this, they're included in those top earners that get excluded from the cap. But apart from the few top earners, everyone else's salary is counted towards the cost cap. So, you can't employ everyone. Pretty sure Mercedes had to lay off quite a lot of people when the cost cap first came into place. But now they're expanding their workforce again. So either their plan is just pay people less, which might not go down particularly well at this sort of time, given it's a struggle for a lot of people, or I don't know what they're going to do. But it's interesting, though, that the cost cap is a thing, but they're going to employ more people, put more resources in. But Mercedes clearly think this is going to be a positive for their team over the next few years, and they need straight up more staff to get better. And maybe there's some truth to that. Just before we finish out the video, pretty remarkable, I've got to say, Mahindra, so their Formula E team. If you guys saw this the other day, I thought it was kind of mind-blowing. So they've decided that AI is the future, and therefore therefore they created themselves an AI-generated influencer. So here you go, this is Ava or whatever. Meet Ava, our artificial intelligence ambassador. So this is just so funny and kind of so bad at the same time. She is our go-to sustainable tech camp, navigating the cutting edge of innovation to create a positive change. Plus, she's passionate about Formula E and is here to share some behind-the-scenes content. So the funny thing about this is, right, the people always say, all right, you know, we need to do more for women in motorsport. And yet Mahindra Racing come out, and instead of actually, you know, maybe hiring a real woman or just somebody, like an actual real person, to be some sort of, you know, content creator, influencer for the team to promote these type of stories, they decided, well, it's cheaper to just create an AI, use an AI image, and well done, everyone. So, you know, pat themselves on the back. We've absolutely nailed it, guys. Fantastic stuff. But I think, understandably, they got lots of backlash for this, right? It's like, okay, come on. Is this really the message we want to send? So, yes, as of today, they've officially axed it. And Mahindra Racing had clearly read all the comments and said the following: nurturing diversity, inclusion, and innovation is at the heart of Mahindra Racing. Our AI influencer program was designed with innovation in mind. Your comments, though, hold tremendous value. We have listened, understood, and decided to discontinue the project. So I don't think anybody else is going to be trying that anytime soon. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.